Hello again, I'm Dave Apsley. I'm a forester and a natural resources specialist with Ohio State University Extension. Today I'm at Scioto Trail State Forest, just south of Chillicothe. I was driving these roads looking for a tree to identify when I noticed there's a lot of this bright red foliage on the main trunks of many of the trees along the road. And that bright red foliage often continues up onto the big branches of some of these larger trees. That bright red foliage belongs to this vine, which is Virginia creeper. I need to caution you a little bit though. Some of that foliage that you'll see this time of the year that looks very similar, it's in a very similar place on the tree, is poison ivy. But remember, poison ivy has 3 leaflets. Poison ivy color can vary from yellow to bright orange to bright red and even purple. So again, be very careful when you're identifying it. But if you see 5 leaflets, then it's Virginia creeper. Virginia creeper leaves can be anywhere from about 4 inches across to closer to 8 inches or so across. Again, palmately compound, so you've got 5 leaflets attached at one point on the rachis or stem. These leaflets have teeth around the margin or the edge. They're fairly large teeth. They can be somewhat pointed or even a little bit rounded. Again, it alternates sides of the twig, so unlike Ohio buckeye, which has leaves that look very similar, these leaves are alternate, and Ohio buckeye leaves are opposite. Other things to look for are on the twigs. You're going to find these round buds. They're very short buds and they've got lots of scales, but they're almost kind of domed, again with lots of scales out on the tips of the twigs. Where the leaves were attached, you're going to have leaf scars. The leaf scars are almost perfectly round and sunken. They look like a little crater. So that's a great identifying characteristic. They can be quite large if they're from large leaves, or they can be a little bit smaller, but I've seen them nearly a 1/4 inch or so in diameter, almost perfectly round and somewhat sunken. This is a clinging vine like poison ivy, so it will attach to the tree and work its way up under the crown of that tree. They're fairly shade tolerant, which means they can survive in shade, so they're not aggressive vines that typically go over the canopies of healthy trees. When trees are stressed or are dead, then the Virginia creeper and poison ivy can grow and become quite large. But on a healthy tree like this, it tends to stay up under the canopy, and it uses a really unique way of doing that. It has aerial rootlets, so out on the tips of the twigs, you're going to find little tendrils that stick out from the side. Those tendrils branch and they almost look like fingers. At the tip of those fingers, you're going to have little round suction pads, and they'll actually attach themselves right to the trunk of the tree. As it climbs its way up, you'll see more and more of those tendrils, typically up higher on the newer growth. And then as you get further back on larger vines, you're going to have these orangish to tannish colored aerial rootlets on both sides of the vine where it's attached, and that keeps it attached to the tree. These aerial rootlets are somewhat like poison ivy, only poison ivy aerial rootlets tend to be a really dark color, almost black, and they're very fine. They're probably less than a 1/16 or so inch in diameter. Almost reminds me of corn silk, and it's very dark. Where the Virginia creeper aerial rootlets are much bigger in diameter, maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so in diameter, and it's lighter in color, either an orangish or a tan color to it. It can become a fairly large vine. You'll see them up to 3 inches or so in diameter. When they get that large, they often do break loose from the tree a little bit and look like they're free hanging, but generally the smaller vines are attached right to the trunk of the tree. Again, it's a beautiful vine. It's native. It produces this wonderful fruit. The fruit is about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. It's actually a berry, so it's a multi-seeded fruit. It's actually related to grapes. They're purplish or blackish in color. They're borne in clusters, and these little stalks or stems they're attached to tend to turn reddish in color, so they're quite beautiful this time of year. I would not recommend eating these. They can be toxic to humans and pets, but for songbirds and other wildlife, they're quite beneficial to have in your woods. Again, this is Virginia creeper, Parthenocissus quinquefolia. It's one of the tougher scientific names to spell and say, but it's a really unique vine that you commonly find in many of our woodlots. Thank you so much for your time. and please take at least part of your day to enjoy it in the woods.